Last week we made our full driver standings predictions, but that is not the only predictions we have to make for the 2025 Formula One season. Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. My name is Justin. As always, I am joined with Brandon. Today we have got our full array of boldest predictions that you could imagine. Anything you could think of for the 2025 Formula One season, we're probably predicting it today. We've got some crazy takes, but I think it should be pretty interesting.
I'm excited. The 2025 season is almost upon us. We have less than a month till we have the big launch event that will reveal all of the liveries for all of the cars. I'm pumped. It's going to be a great episode.
Yeah, the big launch event that will supposedly reveal all the liveries, even though other teams are planning their own car launches as well. So I'm not fully sure what that event's going to include, but we will be there to watch it. That is for not in person unless Formula One you want to invite us. We'll go. As of now, we're just going to watch it through our screens with our lovely F1 TV subscription. But let's jump right into our predictions, starting with our podium pusher of the season. I have gone for Carlos Sainz as my podium pusher of the season. I am expecting him to have a great year at Williams. Maybe this is because I'm not expecting Williams to be that great of a car, and anytime Carlos Sainz performs well, we're going to be like, wow, look at how he's outperforming that Williams. But I think public perception around Carlos Sainz is that he's going to have a great year. I'm expecting him to solidly outperform Alex Albon. I think he will definitely have at least a couple of standout weekends in that Williams where we are reminded how good of a driver Carlos Sainz is. So I have selected the former Ferrari driver, now racing for Williams, Carlos Sainz, as my podium pusher of the 2025 Formula One season.
I think that's a great pick. And oh man, I just want Carlos to have the best season of his entire career. I want him to win races, do all the things. I have gone with Oscar Piastri for my podium pusher of the season. I feel like this is kind of a dark horse sleeper pick for podium pusher of the season, but Oscar has shown kind of measured improvements season over season since he entered Formula One, and I expect that to happen. He still last year seemed to struggle with race pace and tire management. I feel like those are probably his biggest weaknesses, but I think last year was better than the year before. So hopefully Oscar takes another step forward. I think if Oscar takes another step forward, he'll be right in contention with the drivers up at the top with Lando, Max, and whoever else will be at the top. We'll see. But I'm going with Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that there are a handful of drivers who could potentially win the Drivers' Championship next year, and we would be fools to not put Oscar Piastri amongst that group. There was a portion of last year where he looked like the best driver on the grid. He won a couple of races, was really strong throughout the European stint. So if he can extend that form across the entire year, then he certainly will be in contention for not only the Drivers' World Championship, but the more prestigious crown of Podium Pusher of the season. So Oscar Piastri, not to be overlooked in 2025. Back marker of the season, I have gone for Isaac Hadjar. Maybe this is a cop-out answer, picking a rookie. It fully could be. I understand that. But I'm just not expecting a great year out of Isaac Hadjar. I'm not expecting a great year out of Racing Bulls as a team. And if you go back to this time last year, you have Helmut Marko saying that Isaac Hadjar is not ready for Formula One. And then a year later, after not winning a junior category, they're like, yeah, ship him up. We've got this whole pipeline of drivers that are ready for Formula One. Am I buying it? Not necessarily. Could it have just been PR to put Liam Lawson in the main seat and get Sergio Perez out there? It probably was. And so Isaac Hadjar, unfortunately, nothing against the guy. I bet he is an awesome person to be around, but he is my selection for back marker of the season.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I have also gone with a rookie. I've gone with Gabriel Bortoleto. I think that car is just not going to be fast, and much like the trajectory we saw of Zhou Guanyu's career, I just think Gabriel's not going to start off on a good foot because that car isn't going to be very fast, and I think he'll be forgiven a lot because the general perception is that the car isn't going to be fast, and that he'll probably be given a little bit more leeway than maybe drivers in other seats like Isaac Hadjar or Liam Lawson. But I do think he's not going to have a great season. So Again, could be another cop out answer, but I think that he's not going to have a great season, and we'll have to see how quick that car actually is.
Yeah, I feel like he could be a lock for back market just because of how slow car could be. Like he could have the greatest season in the world and we would have no idea because that car could genuinely finish 19th and 20th every single race. And so I do feel bad for him. Like he just won F2. Like we're all forgetting about this, that he was a Formula 2 champion and did what we thought Kimi Antonelli was going to do and come in and win F2 in his rookie season. And we're all hyped about Kimi. Well, this guy just did what we expected Kimi to do, and we're all expecting him to have a bad year. Yes, it's because he doesn't have as much hype behind him. Yes, it's because that stake is going to be horrible, but we will see. Hopefully, he has a great year. The drivers' champion, we predicted who it would be in our last video. We ranked the entire standings. So we gave our original driver standings prediction. This is official on the record who we think will win the drivers' championship. You could change it if you wanted to. But I'm staying the same. I think Charles Leclerc will win the 2025 Formula One World Championship. I'm expecting Ferrari to have a very quick car. I'm expecting Charles to have the upper hand over Lewis Hamilton. I think Charles has a champion mentality. I think he is the driver that is most equipped to fight Max Verstappen or whoever it could be at the front. I'm going with Charles Leclerc as my official prediction for World Drivers' Champion.
I am also going with Charles Leclerc. That's what I said last week, and I'm sticking to it. Basically for all of the same reasons that you just said. But I think without Red Bull being up at the front, I mean, I think Red Bull will be competing. They're just not going to be as dominant as they have been in years past. And I think the driver with the best mentality right now is Charles, and especially with how good he is on Saturday and in qualifying. I think that'll give him a clear advantage to win the championship this year.
Well, we agree. We are both loyal to Charles Leclerc. We predicted him last week. We're sticking with him for the rest of the season. That is our official pick for 2025. Constructors champion, I've gone with McLaren. I think we will see another driver team difference in the World Championships. I think it would be foolish to not think that McLaren are going to have a fast car after how they ended last year. Let us not forget that they just won a Constructors Championship, and the last thing we saw was Lando Norris absolutely dominating in Abu Dhabi to make that happen. And so I think they're going to have a quick car. There is a small part of me that is worried about Ferrari. One, because they have let so many of us down so many times. And two, because they said they're going to change everything about their car going into this year. So we've just gone from them having the fastest package some weekends to completely changing it. There's a chance that that could not work out and that they could be slow and McLaren could have a fairly easy run at the Constructors' Championship. So part of me is going off of last year. Part of me is kind of not putting all of my eggs in the Ferrari basket, but I'm going to go with McLaren as my Constructors' Champion prediction.
Yeah, this one is really tough, and I was debating heavily between McLaren and Ferrari, but I am going to put all of my eggs in the Ferrari basket because, I love to get hurt. I love to get let down. So, I also would love to see Lewis bring success to Ferrari, and I think, you know, they might be able to do it this year. I mean, Lewis is, it's the strongest driver pairing on the grid, I think, in terms of where both of those drivers are at and their pedigree and the success that Lewis has had and all that. But I think that, if he gets in that car and that car is fast, Charles is going to have some competition and everyone's going to have some competition from Lewis. He has showed glimpses over the past couple of years that he is still the driver that we all know he has been all this time. So I'm excited to see that, and I think Ferrari will win the Constructors' Championship. Locking it in on the record, sealed.
The Ferrari versus McLaren for the Constructors' Championship. What decade are we in? That is crazy. Our next segment, not necessarily a prediction, but is instead the biggest question that we have for the season. You just talked about it. Mine is revolving around Lewis Hamilton. And it is, will Lewis Hamilton fix his qualifying issues? We saw all throughout 2024 on many occasions that Lewis Hamilton had insane pace on Sunday, the class of the field, but he was driving from P17 because he got knocked out in Q1 on Saturday. And there is a massive part of me that thinks that was just a Mercedes issue. He clearly did not fully agree with that car ever since the new regulations came in 2022. And once he leaves Mercedes, it'll be the Lewis of old, and he'll be fighting right back from the front, and everything will be fine on Saturdays. There's another part of me that looks back across his career and says, even though he has the most poles, qualifying was never necessarily what Lewis Hamilton was known for. He was more of a race pace, racecraft kind of guy, and he is getting older. And so, if there was something to go first from his repertoire, it could be his one lap pace. And so, while I think this issue will get resolved, I think he will be a much better qualifier on Saturdays in Ferrari than he was in Mercedes. I am worried for this upcoming year, and I'm intrigued to see how Lewis Hamilton will perform on Saturdays this season.
Yeah, this will be something very interesting to watch and track. And I certainly agree with you. While Lewis does have the most poles, I think that he was always strongest on Sundays. And when Lewis has had a car in the past that really agrees with him, he is on, both on Saturday and Sunday. But when the car isn't particularly with him all the time, he usually gets the most out of it on Sundays. And Saturdays suffer a little bit. And I think that's a trend that not only is this past couple years, but you can look back throughout his entire career and that would follow. But so I'm interested to see what happens. I think that'll be crucial in whether or not Ferrari wins the Constructors' Championship. So we'll have to see what Lewis can do with that. My biggest question of the 2025 season is how far has Red Bull fallen down the order? I think it's a big question mark around Red Bull. Obviously a lot of controversy this past season. Max ended up winning his 4th championship. And then, there was just a rumor every single weekend about the other 3 seats in the Red Bull family. And then all the drama with Daniel, Sergio getting replaced. Now you have Liam in the other seat. So where does Red Bull stand? Hopefully, I think a little bit of stability going into the season with the drivers will help them. We'll see what happens, but I think that that's a big question that Red Bull needs to answer, especially if they want to keep Max Verstappen longer than his current contract. It goes through 2028, which is still a ways off, but I think that finding stability and success this season and probably next season, 25 and 26, will be key in whether or not Max wants to stay any longer. So
even within this contract, I feel like every other week we're hearing a rumor that Max Verstappen is going to Aston Martin or Mercedes. So, maybe 2028 is not secured with the way Formula One contracts go these days. I think it would be crazy for us to assume that losing Adrian Newey is not going to have a pretty big effect on Red Bull. I think it is probably no coincidence that as soon as he stepped away from the team, they kind of plummeted down the order. And so I think Red Bull is definitely a wild card team for this year. They could be the 3rd or 4th fastest package, or they could revert back to some of the things that made them so successful in 2023, and we see a very strong Red Bull once again. And we'll have to see how the development goes, moving towards new regulations. Do they now devote more time to that because Adrian Newey is gone, and they try to make up for that with extra manpower? We don't know. So Red Bull is a massive wild card, and that is certainly a question to be looking out for. I think your question was better than mine. I'll be honest. I like yours more, and I'm more intrigued by it. But for now, we're going to move into our push-in predictions. We give 2 push-in predictions out for every weekend, but because it's for the whole season, we're giving out 3. My first push-in prediction is that at least one driver loses their seat in 2025. I'm looking at you, Jack Doohan. I'm sorry. It's nothing against you, but there's no shot that Alpine signed Franco Colapinto, an experienced Formula One race driver of his age, to not try and get him in a seat. But also, and this is a little crazy, you have Mercedes have Valtteri Bottas as a reserve driver, perhaps as insurance if the Kimi Antonelli thing doesn't work out. And even if he just subs in for one race, I'm probably going to count it so I can get the point. But that is my first prediction. My second is that none of the rookies on the grid finish ahead of their teammates in points. I think Liam Lawson, for sure, lock behind Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli, a lock behind George Russell. And then down the grid, as you get into more midfield cars, you could have some crazy things happen, like a Robert Kubica finishes ahead of George Russell because of one crazy finish. But I just think that the talent gap between teammates favors the senior drivers. None of the rookies will beat their teammates. And then my third push and prediction, something we would all love to see. Fernando Alonso returns to the podium. I don't know how good that Aston Martin is going to be at the beginning of the year, but I think we will start to see the Adrian Newey effect probably almost immediately from when that man signs on. So I'm expecting Fernando Alonso to get the most out of that car, drink some champagne, and return to the podium in 2025.
Oh man, I sure hope we see that. Maybe we get another like great Monaco qualifying lap and he's able to, I don't know, stand on the top step there. He was oh so close a couple years ago. But my three pushing predictions, I think this is going to be an ultra competitive year. And I am saying that I think we see 8 different race winners across the season. That, as I'm reading it out loud, seems extremely bold.
It seems
So
not bold at all. That's only the top four teams. If each of their drivers won a race, we had seven last year. That doesn't seem bold at all.
it's more bold than last year. I mean, with 7, I think that seems extremely bold. I think we'll see at least 8 race winners. That's my prediction. Unless you think I should make it 9.
No,
Should I make
eight is
it
fine because
8?
with Kimmy and Liam, you have rookies put in top tier equipment. I think we'll see them have high highs and low lows. And if those highs equate to wins, especially with Kimmy and Mercedes, and who knows how where that car will be. So I'll allow it. Last year there wasn't 8, so I will allow it.
All right, all right. So I think it's gonna be ultra competitive, kind of along the same vein. I'm saying that both Red Bull drivers will win a race. That also seems pretty bold, just because one, we don't know where that car is gonna be, and two, we haven't really seen Liam have any time in a top car. So where is his pace actually? We don't know, but we're gonna find out. And hopefully it's at the front of the grid so I can get my point. And then I am going to say this one also feels pretty bold as I'm reading it out loud. We see one of the Haas drivers finish inside the top 5 in a race, which hasn't happened in a long time. But I think it could happen. I think with it being ultra competitive, I think we might see some crazy stuff happen. And last year, it seemed like there was a lot of weather throughout the entire season, especially in Brazil. So I'm going with Ollie Behrman or Esteban Ocon to finish inside the top 5. Esteban has had some great performances in the rain in the past, so it could happen. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think those are bold but possible for sure. I looked it up. Nico Hulkenberg's best finish last year was sixth. And so a top five is possible. Haas seemed to be on the right trajectory, so that is certainly possible. And the both Red Bull drivers winning race, I'd love to see it. Love for Liam Lawson to grab a win in his first year of Formula One. But what would it be without pushing predictions from the fans? We have season-long predictions from the fans at PVK underscore 96 underscore says Max Verstappen wins a 5th driver's title. I can see it, but it is an absolute wild card right now. At
Yes.
Johnny Wave X7 says Gabriel Bortoleto will finish in front of Nico Hulkenberg. For my sake, I hope that doesn't happen, but what a statement that would be for his career. And at DAP177 says Liam Lawson wins more races than anyone else besides Max Verstappen. Brandon, let's get your take on this.
I think those are great predictions. The last one, Liam Lawson winning more races than anyone besides Max Verstappen. That seems really bold to me, just staring at it on the prep sheet. But again, bold, but all possible. I don't know that Max is going to win his 5th title. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. I think the general consensus is that might not happen. But he is Max Verstappen, so we can never count him out. Never.
Yeah, I think he will be winning races, but winning a title might be too far. But that is what makes this year incredible because we have no idea where any of the teams could be, and we're still making predictions like a month before cars on track. Who knows why we're doing that? Because it's fun. That's why. That is all we've got for this episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, follow us on all our social medias before you go. Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
Parting podium thoughts is, man, I'm excited for this season. I'm excited for all the content that we're going to have coming out. And it's going to be a great year. It's going to be an ultra competitive year, which is going to make it that much more fun to watch. I'm excited for the season opener being in Australia. So that's going to be great. The vibes are going to be high, as they always are in Australia. So it's going to be a great season.
Racing may be down under, but vibes will always be on top in Australia. This was the perfect episode to just get me excited for the season. We're talking about all this craziness, and I just want to see cars on track again. I was truly in the off-season blues, missing Formula One, but we are so freaking back, and I cannot wait for cars to be back on track. We will see you next week for another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. But until then, have a great day, and God bless.